Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video I want to talk a bit about myself and what you can expect on this channel. So as you might see, I am a human being, and a chances are if you're watching this, you're also a human being. Shout out to you, human being watching this. Right now there's about 8 billion people walking on this planet, just like you and me, all with a different perspective and different experience. In this channel I would like to share my unique experience and my thoughts and ideas that really interest me. So to give you a good indication of what actually interests me and what has shaped my views in the past years, I will start by going over some books I've read throughout the years. That means it's time for Steph's Imaginary Book Club. Okay, to start, I'm gonna start with this book. This is a very famous book. This book is written by Yuval Harari, and I received it from a friend maybe 4 years ago. He had 2 copies. And this is really where it all started for me. Before I wasn't much of a reader. I actually never really went to any books in my life. It was also my first English book that I've ever finished. And it's a really interesting book. Maybe some of you have already read it because it's quite famous. But it mainly talks about Homo sapiens, and it goes back to a couple 100,000 years ago. It mainly explains how human beings went from caveman to now, like what are the main evolutionary changes, and it really sparked my interest about human beings and culture and history in general. After I read this book, I immediately was like, yo, Yuval Harari, you're a dope writer. So I bought his other books too. He also has this book, Homo Deus. This is mainly about the future of human beings. A lot of things in here are really interesting. He has a lot of good ideas about where we are heading. Especially with AI and computer technology, it's very interesting to read about. Of course, I also, to finish the trilogy, I had to read this one too. This one is 21 Problems of the 21st Century. It mainly just covers what we are dealing with today. Topics as religion, war, and many other interesting things that are just happening in this century. So that's the Yuval Noah Harari trilogy. So after I got done reading that, something that really shaped my views too about the universe in general is your boy Stephen Hawking. These books are quite small and actually quite easy to read. It's not as complicated as you might expect from maybe one of the smartest guys in history. It really gives you a good indication of what the universe is. This book mainly talks about the Big Bang, how time started, and black holes. Which are really interesting to think about, still quite hard to understand, but it really shaped my view of trying to understand the universe. Then we have some brief answers. Here is basically the last book he released with some peers before he died, which talks about all kinds of topics and his thoughts on them, which is also really interesting. Like it's actually quite easy to read and quite easy to understand, and it explains like really hard stuff in simple terms. Next, I want to share a book about biology, mainly evolution, written by Richard Dawkings. This is also a really popular book. Many of you might know it, but it's called The Selfish Gene. This book basically takes you to evolution and survival, and what essentially life is, what it's trying to do, and what our genes are trying to do, how they are fighting to survive, how they are optimizing strategies to survive. And it really sparked my interest in evolution and biology and human systems. Okay, so next I also got really interested into Jordan Peterson. Some of you might know him. He's quite famous for talking. He also got me really interested into psychology. So I read his first book, not actually his first book. I read his book 12 Rules for Life. And then I also read his book Beyond Order, which is a bit damaged. I'm sorry, Jordan. Hope you don't mind. This is actually one of the first self-improvement books I read. And like Jordan Peterson has really interesting perspective on things, and he has a lot of clinical psychology experience. And it's just really interesting to read in general. What Jordan Peterson really taught me is how to aim at certain things, be a better version of yourself, really push yourself to the limit. Got me into writing. It's been really helpful. I also want to give a shout out to my man Robert Greene. It's also a bit about psychology and just society in general. This is one of his most famous books. I really want to read more of him too. On the topic of psychology, I've started reading Freud. which is very different from any other books. I'm starting to read this book. It's about dreams, which also interests me a lot, but maybe I'll cover some individual books later on in life. If you guys are interested, or if I'm really interested in a certain book and I want to talk about it, then I'll make a separate video for that. These are basically the books that have shaped most of my views. So it's mainly about human beings, the universe, which is basically everything. So everything interests me, I guess. And evolution, biology, all that stuff. So what can you really expect in this channel? So as I showed you in my previous video, if you haven't watched it, then please watch it, maybe for a bit more context. But yeah, I've basically been writing for a year in my notebook, and there are certain topics that really interest me. And some of them I want to explain a bit more in vocal terms. So what I'm going to do is I'll just pick topics that really interest me. And like I said, it's mainly about human beings, the universe, the self, maybe just our overall or human experience. And the topics might vary a bit, but in general, it will mainly just be thoughts that keep me awake at night.